welcome. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. I'd like to welcome our very special guest. It is my honor to bring Abby Odom up. She's put in a lot of hard work for this presentation that we are about to see. So we have some great things in store. We're going to learn about lactation and best breast practices. So come on up, Abby Odom.
Hey everybody, thank you all for coming. So you are all here because you're either going to try to get pregnant soon, you are pregnant, or you're lactating, so you're in some realm of baby land where this is going to apply to you and you may be interested in this information. So I hope you learn a lot, and I hope that we can have a lot of good conversation and that I learn a lot too. I don't have any babies and I'm not currently trying to get pregnant, so this is also interesting to me but not quite applicable yet, so I hope that we can kind of have fun learning about this topic. Alright, so my bachelor's is in animal science from Clemson University, and then I'm working on my master's right now with the University of New England, and then hopefully I can apply those to my interest in dairy science, as well as human lactation, and just animal and human nutrition together. I did a lot of work with dairy animals at Clemson, so when I got to my master's, I was really interested in pregnancy and human lactation and stuff like that. So it's been really cool to learn about this topic and be able to share it with you guys. So I've got a couple things I want us to be able to do at the end of this today. There's 4 different objectives for us. So I want y'all and myself to be able to identify and know how we can prepare foods and meals that are high in thiamine, calcium, vitamin A, and vitamin D. I want us to be able to evaluate our current diets and then be able to set goals and figure out how to reach them for our future diets, and then be able to identify some signs that we need to eliminate or limit certain foods to better help our babies as they are feeding from us. Alright, so this is our outline for today. First off, we're going to get a snack. I've prepared a couple things. And we're going to talk about some questions, and then we're going to go over just some general breastfeeding and formula information, talk about some healthy lifestyle goals, healthy foods and things to avoid. Then we're going to do some meal planning worksheets and get some fresh air later. And then at the end, we're going to finish up with setting some goals, and then y'all can ask me some questions. So there'll be time for that at the end. All right. So as you can see, I have some snacks over here. We've got some peanut butter and oat bars. We've also got some spinach quiche here in slices. So if y'all want to take anything, you can. You want to grab something? I did make these myself, but I did not come up with the recipes. Got it. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to tie those in here in a bit. Okay. So I kind of listed out some of the important stuff. Y'all are going to learn more about these micronutrients later. We've got thiamine that is in the peanut butter and oat snack bars. It's only 4.1%, so it's really not super significant, but higher than in some other foods and snacks. We've got a good bit of fiber and protein in there, which are going to be really important while you're lactating. And then the spinach quiche, which is mostly cheese, if we're being honest here, has a lot of vitamin A, thiamine, and calcium, which are all going to be really important as we talk about it later. Alright, so I've got about 8 questions I wanted to ask y'all. I know when I sent out the first questionnaires to a couple of you, you kind of saw some of these a little bit, but I just wanted us to be able to talk about this and kind of have a conversation about them. So the first one is, what have you heard, or even have you heard anything from your family members about breastfeeding or formula feeding? If you haven't, then you can say you haven't heard anything from them. Just anything they've said about, like, is it good, is it bad, what their experiences were.
Always heard breast is best, but formula is good too.
That's what I've heard too. I've heard that breastfeeding is ideal, but if you can't breastfeed for whatever reason, it's not the end of the world.
My grandma did tell me that I was probably gonna have to use formula because there's no way for me to have enough milk for my baby. So I don't know if it's just a perspective of the older generations, but it does seem like the baby boomer generation, they I don't know if formula became big then or what happened, but there is for some reason there's this thought that there's no way to actually have enough milk for your baby. You'll have to supplement with formula. So, but that one thing I've heard.
Grandma was the same way. She just formula fed her kids.
So we're seeing some generational gaps and differences and stuff there. That's really interesting. What about like friends? Like in that same aspect, have you heard much from like friends that have also been pregnant or lactated or anything like that?
All my friends said it was really hard and good luck. So I figured I would be
You said
able
it was
to.
really hard. Oh, well, I'm glad it worked out. Anybody else? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I heard from some friends that it was difficult because of like, you know, babies can be tongue tied or lip tied or just like not have a good latch and stuff. So I do think it's kind of like an emotional thing for a lot of people.
Gotcha. I've heard a lot of stuff at work too. I work with mostly women, and a lot of them have, you know, been pregnant recently or are pregnant now, and a lot of them have had challenges with it, and some of them love it and swear by it and breastfeed up to like 2 years, and then some just have formula fed. So I've also heard a bunch of different stuff from friends. A lot of like wives' tales and stuff too about changing your quantity of milk and stuff like that. Have you felt like there's been any pressure for you to lose weight while you're breastfeeding, or have you heard that a lot of women try to, you know, lose weight right after they've had their babies?
Yes. My father-in-law.
Your father-in-law?
Was like, oh, Carol, when she breastfed, she was about to blow away. She was so skinny. You're just gonna be too skinny after or something like that. And yeah, no, that's not the case.
Did that make you feel like stressed, like you had to lose that weight?
Oh yeah.
I can imagine that would be stressful. For sure.
Everybody's different.
Yeah, right.
It also makes you really hungry, so
Yes.
you do use a lot of calories, but you also take in a lot too. So.
Yeah, makes you hungry. Do you feel that there's a lot of pressure for you to just breastfeed or just formula feed or one over the other? I know I said that you've heard like breast is best before.
I feel like I've definitely run into more people who are like breastfeed or bust than formula or bust. Like I feel like most of the people, if they're gonna be really intense about it, are intense on the breastfeeding side.
Gotcha. That's what I've experienced as well. I guess this is applicable for any of you. Are there any boundaries that you feel kind of get in the way of you being able to eat healthy now, where you are either, you know, before you've had a baby, while you're pregnant, while you're lactating? Is there anything that you feel like, just there wasn't this in the way I could be healthy?
My child.
Your baby.
Because when you're breastfeeding, you're constantly breastfeeding. So at least right now.
Feedings.
Yeah, right now we're like always feeding. So I just, as soon as I get to the end of the day and I realize I haven't even eaten, much less eating healthy. So
Yeah, just grab whatever.
yeah. So then and then I'm so hungry, I just eat whatever's, you know, around. So.
Gotcha.
It's a blessing that a lot of people brought us food when we first had the baby. And that was awesome because I didn't have to cook. But most of it was not healthy.
Yeah, just kind of eat whatever you can get to. And I feel like that's even true now for just working women in general and stuff like that. It's just hard to make time to just kind of balance it all at once. Alright. Those of you that you feel like you are maintaining a healthy diet, you know, do you feel like there's, you know, anything in specifically that helps you maintain that helps you eat healthy? You know, like any tips for anybody else that you feel like could help them eat better, or, you know, drink more water or exercise?
Keep it colorful.
Keep it colorful.
Yeah.
I like that.
I do not feel that I'm eating a healthy diet, but I feel like when my doctor tells me I need to, that definitely motivates me some.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I think what helps me a lot is I prefer to meal prep or like cook my own lunches, because in my job you could easily just go out to eat all the time, and I just really prefer to pack my own, and with that you're not susceptible to all the grease out there, and you know what you're actually eating.
That makes sense. That kind of ties into our last question a little bit. But when you're out shopping for food, like either at the grocery store or at a restaurant or fast food, do you feel like you're usually motivated by what will taste good or what will be good for your body?
The latter.
Whatever's the healthier option.
That's why we all looked at you with the health question. No, definitely the former.
I actually have a different. My number one is the cheapest.
Whatever's cheapest.
Yeah, whatever's cheapest, and then whatever tastes the best.
Yeah. Priorities.
Produce. It's cheaper.
That's true. I've started discovering that.
Mm-hmm. You can get it pretty cheap. So Michelle, you said you have meal planned. So
Yeah,
you
I meal
do
planned
like
today.
food like that?
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of Tupperware. I just I cook in bulk and then I separate it.
Do you feel like that saves time to be able to do that?
It's nice just to grab it out of the fridge and go.
What constitutes meal planning? I guess that's kind of my question, because like I cook in bulk, and then we'll sometimes we'll freeze some, and then we'll try and have like enough for the week. But we don't if we don't feel like it that day, then we'll get something else, or we won't be like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll just be like, okay, this is what we have. Grab it if you haven't had it 3 times already this week.
I guess there are some like extreme meal planners who they really cook a huge amount of like certain type like combinations of meals. I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess.
But I do pretty much what you said.
Yeah. I usually either think of it like you're either planning out exactly what you're gonna eat and you have it planned out beforehand. So like what we're gonna do is you're gonna plan out like a week's worth of at least breakfast, lunch, dinner. Or it's like you make all that food. So you're still planning when you make it, but the planning is the same either way, whether you're making it then or you're planning out what you're going to make at that time. Yeah. So it's usually how I define it. Actually, meal plan today. Yeah, I did. Alright. So here I'm just going to present some general information. We're not really going to hit formula too much since this is about lactation. I don't want to present it in a bad light, so I just want to give facts of each one. Breast milk, we know, is very complex, has a bunch of different active and live cells in there. It, like I said, is bioactive, so it kind of affects some of the metabolisms in your baby and things that its body is going to respond to. And then it's going to change with your baby's needs throughout the day and over time and situationally. Formula, sometimes we do see it producing, bigger babies by weight, and it's pretty predictable. Okay, I'm going to measure out this amount. I know they've gotten this much specifically. I measured it beforehand. You can kind of get a different brand if they have issues. It's very easy to, change it around and stuff, so that's a little bit easier. But it can increase the risk of diarrhea and necrotizing enterocolitis in newborns, and it sometimes can cause some issues later in life. So it may, according to recent studies, increase your risk of diabetes or obesity later in life. So just a little bit more about breast milk. So it's really, really cool, and it's super, super complex and variable, and it changes so much. So it's got antibodies in it and antioxidants, so it's going to help your baby produce those, and it has those in there, so it's going to help their immune system. So that's the biggest cool thing about breast milk is what it does to their immune system that formula can't. So with formula, humans, we've engineered that to the best of our ability right now. Breast milk is kind of what has adapted over the years and what our body naturally is going to produce for our babies. So it's usually considered, the cream of the crop, the best food for your baby, but obviously formula is another really good option if breast milk is not what you have available for them. So oligosaccharides, we're going to get back to that, but that's kind of a part of the immune system and kind of the bacteria that your baby's going to grow, but we'll come back to that in just a moment. So your breast milk has a lot of fats in it. It has mostly triacylglycerides. That's what's going to make up most of the fats. It's 40 to 55% of the calories that are in your breast milk. So a lot of the calories your baby's getting from it are going to be from fat. Let's see. So it's going to increase as your feed continues. So when you first put your baby on there, you're going to have less fat than you will at the very end. So at the end, you may find that your breast milk is a little bit thicker, a little bit creamier. So it's going to be like your hind milk. And then the fats that are in there are emulsified. So kind of like milk has been homogenized, like cow's milk that you get out of your refrigerator has been homogenized. So the fat is kind of spread within the milk. So when your baby is feeding, that milk as it comes out is emulsified. So you've got all the fats and little tiny droplets kind of mixed in. Obviously, as it sits, it may separate some, but when it first comes out, it's going to be all mixed in and nice and even for your baby. Human breast milk has proteins in it. Obviously, it's got casein, whey, and mucin. So it's pretty similar to what you're going to see in cow's milk, but it is going to be there in different levels. So humans actually have the lowest amount of casein in any studied species. So any species that we've looked at their milk and broken it down and figured out what's in it, we have the least amount of casein that's been studied so far. Carbohydrates are a bit different. So we actually have the highest amount of lactose in our milk. You may recognize lactose, like people that are lactose intolerant. We have that in our milk as well as cows. So that's a sugar that's part lactose and part glucose. We have the same one, but we have a lot more of it than other species because our brains are big, and your brain actually runs off of glucose. It runs off of sugar. So breast milk needs to have a lot of that because your baby's brain is going to be changing and growing and developing a lot as you're breastfeeding. So back to the oligosaccharides, those are actually part of the carbohydrates. They're really long chain carbohydrates, so these really long chain sugars, so your baby actually can't digest it. So they drink your breast milk, the oligosaccharides go down into their digestive system and actually feeds bacteria, but it's going to feed the good stuff. So your breast milk is actually going to help your baby develop a healthy GI tract and be able to feed the good bacteria instead of bad bacteria. So if they don't have that breast milk, you may not be feeding only good bacteria, you may be feeding good and bad, and so it's kind of like a prebiotic. If you were to take a prebiotic supplement or eat a prebiotic, it's like that. It's the same thing. So here I've got a little picture. It's got colostrum, transitional milk, and mature milk. So colostrum is what you're gonna make first day or two that you're breastfeeding. Right after you give birth, it's usually pretty thick and yellow. It's very concentrated, so all of the different stages of milk are going to have the same stuff, but it's just going to be much more concentrated with less volume and less water in the colostrum. So it's thick, and your baby drinks it, and it's going to coat all of their GI tract and block it off, because when your baby's first born, the GI tract doesn't have all the good bacteria in there yet, so it's actually permeable. So if something bad gets in there, actually can go through and make them sick, cause something like the enterocolitis. And so the colostrum is going to coat it and protect it and give it that barrier. And then within the next couple weeks, it's going to turn to transitional milk. And these aren't like big steps. You're not just going to change one morning from colostrum to transitional milk. It's going to slowly change over. Transitional milk is just the transition between colostrum and mature milk. It's a little bit more liquidy, a little bit more creamy and less thick and gooey, and it's a little bit more high in water, a little bit more white. And then mature milk is when you're producing all of the same stuff you would in colostrum, except for it's a little bit higher volume, and you're not getting as many white blood cells and antibodies that are going to fight off disease, because they don't quite need it yet. They're developing their own immune system, so it kind of not really means them off of it, but colostrum is going to give them that big punch of the good stuff to kind of help them get started really well with their immune system. And then mature milk is what you're going to be producing until you wean them off. So 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long you're going, that's what you're going to be producing when they're kind of a bigger baby. All right. So now the good stuff. So I know a lot of you said that you felt like while you're breastfeeding or right after your baby, you're supposed to lose all that baby weight. So I want to talk about if it was either good or bad. That really depends. It's kind of not quite subjective, but it's kind of going to depend on what you were beforehand. So if you were underweight beforehand, it might be good if you kind of stay a little bit heavier and you're more in a normal weight after your baby. But obviously if you were a normal healthy weight beforehand, it is good to lose down to that. Gaining weight and then keeping it can contribute to weight gain later in life. If you're not losing that, you might be kind of holding on to it for a little bit. But it's not a bad thing to be heavier than you were beforehand. You just had a baby, and it's gonna take time, and it should take time. So this is not something that you want to just boom, let me just drop all this weight. Because if you're breastfeeding, it takes a lot of calories. You're gonna need to feed your body. You don't want to be losing. You want to still have about 1,800 calories per day. So if you're burning off a bunch of that and you're not eating enough, you're gonna be taking away a lot of your energy, because you're gonna also be lactating, and you're gonna be exercising, eating healthy, whatever. So you want it to take a long time. You want to kind of stretch it out a little bit and make it kind of an easy transition. Obviously, if you're breastfeeding or formula feeding, that's going to change it too. So if you're formula feeding, you can kind of afford to do more exercise and stuff like that, restrict calories because you're not feeding your baby. But if you're breastfeeding, obviously you have to be really careful to make sure that you're still, taking enough calories and stuff like that to feed your baby, and you don't want to lose weight too quick or, cause any big changes too fast. If you are looking to lose your weight, you need to focus on diet and exercise. So don't leave out the exercise part or leave out the diet part. They're both really important. And don't make it something that you're gonna obsess over. You know, if it happens, it happens. You know, we don't want to be gaining weight or anything until like you don't want to be going into an overweight BMI or anything. But as long as you're in that healthy one and you're kind of staying there and you're stable, then that's good. And that's a good place to be. All right. So we're gonna do a food categories game. And Michelle, you can actually stop that and we'll start it back in just a moment.